This topic has been coming up quite a lot lately, so I thought that it would be a good idea to sit down and talk about surrendering because, man, do I hate surrendering. I hate it so much. I love that I have this illusion that I can control things, and I love that I have this illusion that I can make things happen in my life. And I'm just reminded constantly that surrendering is the key to peace and happiness in my life. And man, it just every time I get my grips on how I think things should be, I am like knocked back to what surrendering really is. And I'm realigned with surrendering and allowing that to be a part of my life. And like one thing that like I constantly feel like I'm asking my spiritual friends is like, what is even surrendering? Like, how do you even surrender? Like, it doesn't make sense in my mind. Like, surrendering doesn't make sense. Like, how do you surrender? Like, surrendering is like the hardest thing. I just said surrender so many times. But if you guys are here watching this live, say hi. If you catch the replay, type replay. Yeah, I would love to see who catches this video or who watches the replay of it. So I think this video is going to be pretty short. But that's my biggest question is, how do I surrender? And I thought maybe I would just tell you guys a little story. That's like the best way that I operate anyways. So after my mom had passed away, I was still living in North Carolina, and I had all of these expectations of like I was going to get a promotion, I was going to keep moving up in this one company, and like I had this illusion that I was controlling all of these things and that I was going to make them happen. And it's just funny because we will stay on our path no matter what. And so by continuing to like try to push forward and make things happen that maybe weren't supposed to happen, I experienced a lot of frustration and pain. And it was when I surrendered that things got easier. And so my surrender in those moments were moving back to Florida, because Florida was the place that I needed to be. And I broke my heart a lot trying to make something happen and trying to stay in this place that I wanted to be in, but I knew wasn't serving me any longer. I knew in my heart that I wasn't happy in North Carolina, and I just wanted to be there. And so one door after another was shut right in front of my face. And it's just funny looking back at all of that now, because I would not have done the healing work. I would not have done the soul work if I would have stayed in North Carolina. And it was as if like right when I got back to Florida, that was my surrender, and I started to heal and I started to do the things that I needed to do. But it took a lot of pain. It took a lot of closed doors in my face. It took me feeling like I was losing my dreams. It felt like I wanted to make this job work because my mom loved that I had this job, and it felt like giving up on this job, even though it was breaking my heart trying to stay in it, felt like I was disappointing my mom. And it was later that I realized, when I started to do the healing and the soul work and started to connect with my mom again, I realized that I was exactly where I needed to be, and she loved me no matter what. But it was hard to shut that door, because shutting that door meant starting something new that my mom wasn't going to be here to see, or starting something new that I couldn't call my mom and get advice on. And so I have 5 steps for surrendering, because I've asked a million times, how do I surrender? How does this work? Like, I don't even know what surrendering entails. And surrendering, first step is to forget what I think I need. Because when I have this expectation, every single time I have this expectation in this plan of it's going to look exactly like this, it's going to go like this, this is the how, this is the why, this is the when, this is the where. And a lot of times we can still get to the places we want to be, but having the details planned out of what it's going to look like, when we get there, we still feel disappointment, and we can't celebrate and live in that joy because it didn't happen the way we thought it was supposed to happen. And so I have to forget everything that I think that I need. And one of my favorite prayers now is I pray for the highest good of all, because if I would have stayed in North Carolina, this grief resilience group would not exist. It would not have happened. And I see that I've healed so much by being here, and I've been able to help so many other people heal as well. And so by praying for the highest good of all and letting go of my expectation of what that looks like and how it's going to happen, I'm able to celebrate the good things that do come. And somebody said to me last night something that really stuck out to me, and he said, what if my entire life was never about me? And what if it never will be? And I just thought, like, wow, like all of my expectations are about me and what I think things should happen and how they should look for me. But like, what if it's not about me? What if it's for the highest good of all? And what if it's, you know, I get more out of helping others than I feel like they get sometimes. And maybe that's really what it's all about. Maybe we get what we need when we're giving what others need at the same time. So forget all expectations, forget what you think you need. The second is I focus on what's going well, like what's working, because a lot of times I feel like my mind is this magnifying glass, and I stub my toe in the morning and I'm like, this is going to be the worst day ever. Like, I just hate everything today. Like, it's going to be a bad day. And every single time I say that, it ends up being a bad day. Like, every single time. So, like, when I have those rough mornings where I, don't get up on my alarm on time, instead of focusing on the bad thing that happened, I try to say, well, this coffee's really good this morning. Or I didn't hit any red lights today on my way to my destination. And I just try to, like, refocus my mind onto the things that are good and the things that are working, because my mind is a magnifying glass and what I focus on is what grows. And so when I let go of the expectations of how it should be, and then I'm focusing on only the good things are then amplified. Number 3 for me is paying attention to resistance in my life. And when I run into an obstacle, I have to remember that obstacle is rerouting me to the path that I need to go. And like, there have been times in my life where I hit this wall and I'm just so determined, like, I want to make this thing work, that I just keep running myself into this wall over and over and over again. And like, it's painful. And like, it could have been easier if I just like, okay, this isn't working, what might work? Or this isn't working, let me focus on what is working. And like, let me recognize that this is an obstacle and this is a resistance. And like, when I hit resistances in my life now, I like to think, okay, well, I want to have a quality life. Like, my mom's death, like, gave me this like realization that life won't last forever. And like, I want to spend as many of these moments happy as I can. And so when I hit these obstacles, I have to like rethink, okay, this is painful. How long am I willing to sit in this pain? And what can I focus on or reroute that makes me feel good? What can I do instead of this that will make me feel better than I feel right now? And so focusing on the good things and recognizing that sometimes there's more than one way to do things. Sometimes this wall is meant to be here because I'm not supposed to go down that path. And there have been times where I feel like I did get past that wall and there was so much heartbreak afterwards. There was so much more pain that I probably could have avoided if I would have paid attention to this resistance. And I think that a lot of times I get these feelings of resistance is when I'm like trying to tell other people, like my family members or like my friends who are grieving, I want them to know grief the way that I do and be able to like not be in as much pain. And like sometimes that resistance is like, I've got to just let it go because it's their journey and maybe that's the path that they need to be on so that they can help somebody else in the future. So paying attention to the resistance and obstacles and not forcing myself through them is a big one to surrendering. The 4th one is asking for signs. And every single time I've asked for a sign from the universe, I've gotten it. Every time I like to say, like, if this is the right path for me, send me a pineapple or send me, I like to declare what my sign is going to be and they show up as long as I ask for signs. And like the key to this is asking for the sign and then keeping an open mind that you will receive it. And that it will happen for you, because there have been times where I've asked for signs and I didn't get them. And every single time that happened, it's because I didn't have an open mind to receiving the sign. I already had this expectation, right? This preconceived notion in my mind of what this sign would be like. And I missed it a couple times. And I think I've told this story before, but I'd asked for a sign to see a pineapple. And I got on Facebook 5 minutes later and there was like one of those advertisements on Facebook and like the image was a pineapple. And I was like, but that's not a real pineapple. I didn't specify. So like that was my sign. That was the pineapple that I'd asked for. So asking for signs and then being open-minded enough to receive them and being open-minded enough that it might not show up in the form you expect it to show up in. That's super important. Another way that I like to receive signs, and I've talked to some of you guys here about this. And if you guys have received these signs and done this, I would love to hear about them. But the other night I was sitting in my car. I was really upset. I said this already. I had a rough week last week. I'm sitting in my car, and a spider goes crawling across my windshield on the outside of the car. And I thought, man, like I haven't seen a spider. I was like, man, I haven't seen a spider in a really long time. But guys, like 3 weeks ago, there was a spider in my washing machine, and I couldn't do laundry because I didn't want to kill it and I didn't know how to get rid of it. So like, it's funny because I didn't have an open mind, and that spider was there weeks before, and I didn't see it or recognize it as a sign. And before that, I hadn't seen a spider in a really long time. And then that night, the spider goes crawling across my windshield, and I thought, man, I think that's a sign. Like, why are these spiders showing up in my life? And I Google animal spirit messages quite often. So I Googled animal spirit message spider, and the message was just so beautiful and spot on. And I thought, wow, like when I open my eyes, the signs are there, whether I'm asking for them or not. And yes, the open-minded part is the most difficult part. I agree. It's hard because like when I'm expecting things to go a certain way and I have it in my head that it's going a certain way, I miss the signs. And like that spider in the washing machine, I totally missed it. But then the spider going across my windshield, I was open and I remembered, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe this is a sign. So yeah, just maybe pay attention to the critters, the insects, the animals that are showing up in your life, and Googling what the animal spirit messages of those are. That's sometimes a lot of the time showing us the signs that we need to see, whether we're asking for them or not. And number 5, just surrendering. When you think you've surrendered, surrender again. Start all over. Figure out what expectations you're still holding on to. Figure out where your magnifying mind is paying attention to. Start focusing on the good things again, and then reevaluate what resistance you're feeling in your life. Where are you being blocked? And when you think you've surrendered, it's always time to surrender again. Like we can always surrender more. It's like an onion, and the layers keep peeling back and peeling back. And yeah, it's just one of those things that's really hard because it's like, I don't know how to surrender. I don't want to surrender. Sometimes my mind is like, I know I need to surrender and I need to give this up, but it's like a whole new grief of saying like, I'm going to let this thing go. It's like a whole new loss, especially when we have these ideas of how things should be. It's just a whole nother layer to grief and loss. So I just wanted to say, like, the spiritual foundation is like a requirement for our healing. The spiritual foundation is a requirement for us to continue moving forward and live a quality, happy life no matter what happens to us. And surrendering to powers greater than yourself that you believe are capable of taking care of you is paramount in this. And I do want to say I meditated yesterday. I have, they're right here. I have mala beads. If anybody knows what mala beads are, there's 108 beads on here. And I just go one at a time, and I just sit there and I meditate and I move through the beads. And that way I don't have to keep track of time. I don't have to keep track of how many times I've said my mantras. So if you guys use mala beads, I would love to hear about that too. But there's this mantra that Gabby Bernstein has in her book called A Course in Miracles. And I meditated on this yesterday, and this really helped me with surrendering, because it's like, okay, I surrender, but now what? Where do I go from here? And this mantra that she has that I meditated on yesterday was so comforting for me, so I thought I would share it with you guys. And it's, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to who? And those 3 questions, you know, when I meditated on them, I didn't like get answers. Sometimes the answers don't come in our brains, and sometimes we don't feel them in our heart, but just doing that, I felt at peace, because I felt like that was a huge step to surrendering for me, right? Like, I'm letting go of what I think should be, and I'm now listening. I'm now open. Where should I go? What should I do? What should I say, and to who? And I hope that helps some of you guys here. I look forward to hearing about how this goes for you guys, if this is useful information, as always. And I hope that you guys have a great day.